Now that we have some of the GUI basics down, let's see about another control. For this, let's go ahead and create a border pane because that's easy enough. We'll have some controls. We'll grab a label, put it on top, and we'll use the slider. The slider is kind of fun, and the slider can be used quite a bit for controlling user input. So for this example, I want to be able to control, make sure that the person can only enter between 50 and 100. I'm going to set the initial value to be 75. You can snap to ticks, you can show the major marks, you can do all sorts of fun things. You can play with it, just see what happens, play with different numbers. The slider is a very powerful tool. And so now that I've showed the major ticks, went away, show the labels. Oh, that's fun. I like the labels. Let's keep the labels in there. All right, so we have our lovely handy dandy slider. We have our label, and we have our border pane. All right, excellent. Let's see here. I'm also going to, since I've usually have this down to 400, I'm going to set it down so that the preferred width is 400 as well. There we go. So nice, it's easy enough. I'm going to click on label, go down to code, and I'm going to give this a FX ID right here in order so that I can actually use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this around and have the input show up on label. So I'll call this just label 1. For the slider, I'll do the same thing. I'll call it slider 1. Now I've got to give it a method. Now notice this is not a button, so it doesn't have an on action. It has drag and drop stuff, but I don't want to drag anything onto it. I've got keyboard. That could be fun if I actually wanted to control the slider with my keyboard, but I want to control the slider with the mouse. All right, there's all sorts of different ones. Menu requested, mouse clicked, mouse dragged, mouse entered, mouse exited, mouse moved, mouse pressed, mouse released. Well, I'm not interested when I press it. I'm not interested in when I release it. Mouse moved is good, but that would anything above that control would register as a mouse move. What I particularly want is a drag, which means I click this button and I drag it. So I'm going to call this my mouse dragged method. There we go. All right. So remember, this is called slider 1, and then we have the mouse dragged method. Everything's good. So I'm going to do File, Save As, and save it where I always save it, Java Examples. I'm going to call it slider example. All right. That should work out lovely. So now let's go on to the to JGrasp and connect it. All right, so we have JGrasp here. Now what I need to do is grab the template that I have created for you so that you don't have to memorize it or anything. So here's the template, new Java, and smash that in. The following is the basic FXML Java template. All right, I'm going to comment this out. Got lots of imports, so I don't have to think about anything there. Simple enough. I need to change the class name. I'm going to change it to slider example. And I also need to especially change the get resource. So I called it slider example.fxml. I called it the same thing for consistency to make it easier on myself. So I'll save it. Yes, same place as always. Also, I have to make sure to save it in the same place as the fxml file. If this slider example.fxml is not in the same place as the slider example.class file, which is generated when I compile, it won't work. All right, so I compile it, great. I run it, and yay! Lots of errors. So this error is, of course, telling me error resolving on mouse dragged. So I have to call this mouse dragged method. And if you recall, I called it mouse dragged method. So I have to implement that, no problem. So I'll go over here, add fxml, and this is protected void blob mouse drag method. I called the mouse drag method back here in SceneBuilder, mouse drag method, so I have to also call it mouse drag method here. I also have it here just in case, so if I don't name it exactly right, Java will tell me and complain. All right, before I called it the action event, and that's what worked for the onAction method. But you know what? That's not going to work for us today. What exactly is it that we need? Because I'm going to click on here. Aha! The get on mouse dragged public final event handler super aha mouse event. That's what I need, is the mouse event, not the action event. Just so you see what happens, let's go ahead and run this and have some really nasty errors come up. So mouse dragged. Okay, we'll compile it. Everything's fine. We'll run it. And then, hey, it came up. Looks pretty. All right, set to 75. I will turn it. Ooh, look at all those errors. Just lovely. They just keep going and going and going. Like that Energizer Bunny. And so if we get to the top of this, it says exception in thread, illegal argument exception, argument type mismatch. So if we go back to the documentation, this said mouse event. I'll even highlight it and copy it so I don't have to type. Not action event, it's mouse event. All right, now that we have the mouse drag method and the right event, then it should work and it'll run. Yay, mouse dragged! Happiness is ours. Okay, so if we go back to the documentation, there's all sorts of things. That get on mouse dragged has a mouse event, on mouse drag property has mouse event, there's this mouse event. Lots of mouse things have mouse events. Well, there's other ones. If we go back here, let's say the key pressed one. Well, the key pressed wants, hey look, the key event. Nice. So it makes sense. If we were to look at the label, and that it's got some of its own, like the drag, drop, the keyboard, the mouse, the rotation, the swipe, the touch, the zoom. Let's suppose I was interested in a drag detection. Well, that also has a mouse event. So you just have to read the documentation to figure out which one you need. Of course, for every single control that we cover in this class, I'll be showing you the examples anyway. All right, so now what I want to do is I want that label to show me what is currently in the slider. Well, the slider, the name of it is slider1, so I have to import it. So we're going to tell Java that we're going to be importing it, fxml slider1. Notice that this is called slider1, and this is also called slider1. If they're not exactly the same, it won't work. And the other one, fxml label1. Is it label 1? Yes, it is. I can click on label, and there it is. So they have to both match exactly. All right, so let's go ahead and get the current value. So when the slider is passed, we'll do get value. To set the value, of course, is set value. Those are the most common ones for the slider. Get value and set value. So we'll compile that. We'll run it. All right. And down here, it'll tell us what it is. Hey, 77, 78, 80. Hey, this is a lot of fun. Whee! About to run 90. I like that. Okay, 80. Nice. So, that's pretty cool. What I want now is I want the label to be showing that. Okay, so instead of printing this out, say double input. It's actually not input, so I'll say current value. There you go. Equals slider1 dot get value. And then we'll do label1 dot set text and pass in current value. Now that won't work. Why not? Because that's a double and that needs a string. So I'll compile it, and it says incompatible types, double cannot be converted to a string. Well, okay, so I'm going to convert it anyway. So the easiest way I know of to convert it, a number, like an integer or a double, is just to concatenate the number with the empty string, and that will explicitly convert it. Yay! Okay. All right, so let's see what happens. Whoa, it is very happy. Okay, so if you're curious why it's snapping like that, is back here, on here, my properties, I said snap to ticks. So if I want to get rid of that, I'll unclick this. I'll save this again, no problem. And I'll close this. And since I didn't actually change anything with Java, I just have to run it again. It'll run it, and look, it's no longer snapping to ticks. What if I want it to only show me integers, though? How would I take this double value and only have it be an integer? You figured it out yet? Well, the easiest thing is, let's do this, int value equals, and I'm just going to cast the double into an integer, current value, and then this will be now an int value. There we go. And look, isn't that nice? So there you go. So let's review. Back here in SceneBuilder, what we had is we created our little application with a border pane. I dragged a label to the top and slider to the middle. I put minimum and maximum, and the current value as 75. Snap to ticks will snap it. I can show the labels if I want to. There we go. Show tick marks, show tick labels. There's the marks, there's the labels, all sorts of things that I can do. The code, of course, I had to give it an actual ID, and then I had to get the correct method on mouse dragged event. If I wanted to know how to do it, it's going to be, the mouse event is what I have to pass in. So back in here at fxml protected void, the same method name here, and according to the documentation, this needs to be mouse event. And to be able to access these, slider, get value, set value, label, that's set text, and get text. And that's it.